Hey guys, Technomentary here with the video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the iPhone 11 Pro versus the iPhone 10 or the iPhone X in 2021. Both of these phones have been upgraded to iOS 14. We're going to break everything down for you guys. If you guys are looking to buy either of the phones or looking to upgrade from one to another in 2021, we're going to do all of that comparison and let you guys know all the questions that you might have about these phones. We're going to break all of that down from the hardware to the software and then overall experience and performance of these phones. But before we go ahead and get started, if you guys are new to our channel, we do a lot of tech news, reviews, and giveaways, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. So let's go ahead and get started with today's video. As you can see here, we have space gray edition of both of the phones in our hand here, and we're going to be comparing all of that. And the first thing we want to compare is actually the box here. So we'll put the phone aside and take a look at the box. As you can see, slight difference in terms of the box. Of course, you have the back on the iPhone 11 Pro as the front cover, and then the front here of it. And as you can see here, the boxes are pretty much the same. Most of the content is the same, both of the box, but this video is an unboxing video, so we're not going to go in depth with all of that. So we'll put the box aside here for you guys and then take a look at the actual phone and what you can expect out of these two phones. So first things first, here as you can see, we have the iPhone 10, right, and the iPhone 11 Pro. So let's go ahead and take a look at the phones itself. So first thing we want to take a look at is the actual back of the phone. So as you can see here on the back of the phones, the iPhone 10 here has the Apple logo up here versus the iPhone 11 Pro, and Apple now started to move their Apple logo towards the mid. Not sure why Apple has done that. The other thing Apple has done or gone away with is actually putting the word iPhone on back of the iPhone display. So not sure if they're looking to save some money in terms of like printing less cost efficient thing. And the other thing you'll notice is sort of on the phone are these shiny versus more matte looking black glass here. Both of them does have black glass, but there's sort of this shinier version and the matte version on the iPhone 11 Pro. And of course, the one thing you can't miss is that dual camera on the iPhone 10 versus that triple camera on the iPhone 11 Pro. So those are the big things to note in terms of the body of the phones. Both of these phones are, as you can see here, look about the same size, but if you looked at comparing these phones, we're going to take a look at both of the phones here. The build of it, as you can see, almost look identical when you look from the top, side, and the bottom, of course. So the build almost looks like they're about the same sort of build on the phones here. So not much there to report on these phones. These phone does come in a couple of variations of color. The iPhone 10 unfortunately comes in two colors. You have the space gray edition or the white edition, or the silver edition if you would. And the iPhone 11 Pro has a little bit more color to it. You have this special color known as midnight green for the very first time that Apple has introduced. And you have your typical space gray, your gold, and your silver white finish to the iPhone 11 Pro. So that's one big thing about the iPhone 10 is the first time Apple has introduced that all-screen body OLED, which both of these phones have. And the other thing we want to talk about if we put these phones side by side, as you can see here, if you're looking at the front screen here, you probably won't notice sort of the difference between it from the front angle. If someone were to show these phones to you in front facing, you wouldn't know the difference because both of them does have that 5.8 Super Retina HD display on it, and a lot of similarities in their display of these phones. You have that OLED technology, that HDR display, and the same amount of resolution. Both of the phones have 2436 by 1125 pixel resolution at that 458 ppi. The other thing to notice about these phones, they both have true tone display. They have that wide color display. The one noticeable thing about this display is that the iPhone 10 has that 3D touch to it. So you have that 3D touch to it, where the iPhone 11 Pro has your haptic touch to it. So that's one noticeable thing. The other noticeable difference in the display itself is that actual brightness. The max brightness on the iPhone 10 goes up to 625 versus the iPhone 11 Pro, which goes up to 1200, so almost double the amount of brightness. Something you notice if you're a person that uses a phone or outside a lot in that bright display setting, you'll probably notice sort of that difference coming into play. The other thing we want to talk about is actually the weight between these two phones. Of course, it's the iPhone 11 Pro, because of that triple camera and a lot more in the hardware, is a little bit heavier. Both of them are around the 6 ounce, but the iPhone 11 Pro goes up to that 6.3 versus that 6.14. If you hold it side by side, that doesn't really, it feels about the same. So if you're looking for a phone in terms of the weight, they sit pretty nicely on your hand. As you can see, I have smaller hands here, but they fit really well on the phone, and I really like both of these phones. I think these phones, because of that size, that hold on your phone on it, it's really unique design of the phones. And other thing we want to talk about is that splash, water, and dust resistant of the phones. So both of the phones have quite similarities in terms of the IP rating. So IP rating is a rating that you compare in the phone. So the iPhone 11 Pro has an IP68 rating versus the iPhone 10, which has IP67 rating. What does that mean? That means the iPhone 11 Pro, you're able to go up to 4 meters for 30 minutes, and the iPhone 10 up to 1 meter 30 minutes. So what does that really mean? Well, if both of the phones are water resistant, it just means the iPhone 11 Pro has more to it. It can go deeper in the water. But if you're taking phones for a dive, the one thing you want to note is that if the screen is cracked, or even the back glass, which are easily cracked on these phones, are cracked, or if there's any sort of crack at all, water is going to get in your phone, compromising that water resistivity. So you might want to be careful if you're thinking of taking the phone for a dive. If for any reason you have any damages on the phone, you're going to experience sort of that issue with these phones. Let's talk about the other hardware piece, which is really important about these phones, is the chip on it, right? The iPhone 11 Pro has the A13 Bionic chip, and the iPhone 10 has the A11 Bionic chip. So two generation difference in terms of the actual chip between this phone. What does that really mean? Well, we're going to talk about that in the software aspect of things, such as if you're doing heavy gaming or need a powerful chip. That's where that comes into play. The iPhone 11 Pro has the same chip that the iPhone SE 2020 edition has, which came out 6 months after the iPhone 11 Pro. The iPhone 11 Pro, as you know, came out in 2019, September, around the annual time frame Apple releases their phone, where the iPhone 10 came out in 2017. So 2-year difference between the phone, and both of the phones start at around that $999 mark, where Apple has started with the iPhone 10. So iPhone 10 actually is the culprit for Apple introducing that $1199 price point for their 64 gig model. Of course, let's talk about that storage thing about these two phones. So what kind of storage configuration can you get out of these phones? The iPhone 11, as we mentioned, and the 10 comes at that base 64 gig model, which costs around that $999 mark. Of course, the iPhone 10 can only go up to 256 gig. But the iPhone 11 Pro in the medium grade for the storage, you're able to get it at the 256 gig and go all the way, double that to 512 gig of storage, which is pretty much the max that you can get even on the newer iPhone 12 lineup. So that's one thing to note about the storage of these phones. And let's talk about the other aspect of these phones, the battery life. It's an important thing we want to talk about when you're taking a look at these two phones, is the battery life of the phones. As you see here, what kind of things can you expect from the battery of these two phones? The one thing you're going to expect about these batteries is that the iPhone 11 Pro does have a bigger battery compared to the iPhone 10. And what does that really mean? Well, that means we want to talk about video playback whenever we talk about the battery life of any iPhone. So the iPhone 11 Pro gives you about 18 hours of video playback, compared to the iPhone 10, which gives you 13 hours. So 5 hours of difference between the video playback. And what does that really mean? Well, that means if you have full charge on these two phones, the iPhone 11 Pro, pretty much if you're a light to medium user, that means you use apps here and there throughout the day, you're pretty much gonna go on, you'll last most likely the whole day with the iPhone 11 Pro. Where the iPhone 10, if you're a light to medium user, you might make it maybe 3/4 of the day before you need a charge. So that's one thing to consider. The iPhone 11 Pro does have a better battery in that aspect. But if you're a light user, most likely the iPhone 10, you can get through the whole day. Even if you're a heavy user, both of the phones, for sure, even the iPhone 11 Pro will not last you the whole day. If you're a person that's constantly glued to your phone, constantly doing this stuff, you might get 3/4 of the day before you need to get a charge. Let's talk about the other aspect of iPhone. What makes iPhone great is its cameras. Of course, everyone knows that if you're looking for a better camera, you're going to be looking at the iPhone and the camera itself. So the iPhone, as you can see here, because of the triple lens on the iPhone 11 Pro, you have that wider angle. So that's why when you go to photo, you see that 0.5 versus that 2 zoom, versus on the iPhone 11, iPhone 10 here that we have goes up to 1 and 2 zoom. So what does that mean? The iPhone 12 Pro has 4x the optical zoom versus the iPhone 10, which only has 10x, or the iPhone 10 only has 2 optical zoom. The other thing we want to talk about is both of the phones does have that photography mode. So you have both of these are able to do all the photography mode on it, except the iPhone 12 Pro does have this newer one, which is called high key light mono. So that's the one noticeable feature that's available on the iPhone 12 Pro. And in terms of video recording, same thing. You have wider angles, ultra wider angles, but both of the phones are actually able to record at 4K 60 frames per second at the highest setting of it. You go from 720 all the way to that 4K 60 frames per second. So in terms of photography wise, there's slight advantage on the iPhone 11 Pro compared to the iPhone 10. Enough with the actual hardware build of these phones. Let's talk about the actual software of these two phones. So both of the phones, as you can see here, we downloaded most of the popular apps without any issues. It's running iOS 14 right now. Both of the phones run phenomenal on iOS 14. We haven't seen any issues running iOS 14. And if you guys haven't checked out our reviews of iOS 14 on both of these devices, make sure you guys check it out. And what do we notice that if you're using either of the phones for your gaming, light gaming, both of the phones are phenomenal for light gaming. And once you start getting into heavier gaming, such as racing games or even games like PUBG, where it's meant to be played on a console, the iPhone 11 Pro does a little bit better job because of that A13 chip compared to that A11 chip. It's not as powerful, of course, because of the generation differences of it. But nonetheless, your social media apps work phenomenal. Even for streaming videos, you're gonna notice that both of the phones does a phenomenal job. If you're using it for Netflix, that 5.8 display does really make a lot of difference. That's why it's probably one of my favorite phones, because of that huge display. When you're watching videos, you're able to watch it at really phenomenal screen size, and that OLED does really bring the most out of these phones. And all of your popular video streaming, your music streaming work phenomenal without really any issues. And that's one thing you're gonna like about these phones, is that iOS 14, you can update both of the phones, do everything you need to do, from productivity tools to your basic banking needs to just any apps that you use. Pretty much all of that, it's gonna work, no issues on both of the phones. The one thing we want to talk about is the iOS update. So the iPhone 10, as it's been released in 2017 when it first came out, and the iPhone 11 Pro, which is 2 years older, came out on iOS 13, is that the iPhone 11 Pro will be getting a few more years to update. So we expect the iPhone 11 Pro, Apple will keep on giving support till for another at least 3 to 4 years, where the iPhone 11 might get maybe 2 to 3 years. So you're going to get extra maybe 2 years more on the major iOS update. And that's probably the point where we want to make, is that once Apple starts the update, it does still support it. Most apps still work, but later down the line, you start feeling that iPhone slowing down and you're needing to upgrade. So if you're looking for a phone and comparing these two phones and have the option to buy the 11 Pro, we would say get the 11 Pro for its ability to get updates a few years extra than the iPhone 10. But if you're looking for a more cost efficient phone, probably want to get the iPhone 10, because right now you can get the iPhone 10 in the link that we provide in the description section, around $300 or so, where the iPhone 11 Pro, even if you buy a pre-owned one, you're going to be paying around $700-800, so almost double the price. And if you compare to buy a new one, you can probably score the iPhone 11 Pro around $800-900 versus the iPhone 10, which you're going to be able to score probably around $450 to $500. So almost half the price, whether you buy it used or new, between these two phones. But the thing about both of these phones is that the iPhone 11 does have a better battery and camera, and will give you a few more years of update compared to the iPhone 10. So that's our review of the iPhone 11 Pro versus the iPhone 10. Which one would we recommend? Of course, if you're looking for budget friendly, maybe the iPhone 10, because it does pack quite the punch, all of that feature that you have, and it will still be supported for another 2 to 3 years, versus the iPhone 10, which will be still supported for another 3 to 4 years, but you're going to be paying a little bit more because of the upgraded features that you have. So hopefully this video is helpful. If this video is helpful, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you guys are in the market for a new phone, check out the link in the description section as well. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.